Rule of thumbs, my friend, a lot of times in our lives we go with what is called the rule of thumb. And rule of thumb gives you a broad approximation of how one needs to do. These rule of thumbs are very, very important in the financial world as well, in the investing world, and there are quite a bit of them. And today we're going to talk about 10 important rule of thumbs that will help you manage your personal finance very, very well, very effectively. The first rule, and the most popular one, is called Rule 72. Rule 72 explains very simply that it is at what rate should your money grow so that it doubles. That's what it's trying to understand. So let's say if your investment is in a bank fixed deposits, then 72 divided by, let's say, 6% will mean it takes 12 years for your money to double from where it is at that point in time. On the contrary, if you say you are investing in a stock or a mutual fund that is doing exceptionally well, although a little risky, and is expected to generate 12%, then 72 divided by 12 will mean 6, which means in 6 years your money will double. So getting to know how your money is going to double is what this Rule 72 is going to explain about. It can also give you a rate. Let's say you wanted to double your money in 10 years, then 72 divided by 10 will mean you need to grow your money at 7.2% for your money to grow. So it can be either a rate or a time, both of which can be determined using this Rule 72. Very, very useful. The second rule is called Rule 70. Rule 70 is a rule that people use to understand at what rate will my money become half thanks to inflation. So if you say, as an example, I have a high inflation, we're all suffering from high inflation at this point in time, and let's say the inflation rate is 7% now, then I know that my money value will halve every 10 years. So 70 divided by 7% means that every 10 years the value of my money will go down by half of what it is. So that is what Rule 70 is all about. The third is the 4% financial freedom rule. The rule of financial freedom is called a 4% rule. Now what does that mean? Is that for every 100 rupees, I can hope to generate a cash flow post-retirement of 4 rupees. Now this is very, very important for somebody to understand what kind of a corpus they need to create a rule of thumb when they retire. Let's say I'm a 50-year-old guy. I have a monthly expenses or an annual expenses of my household of about 5 lakhs a year. Now 5 lakhs divided by 4% will mean that I need a corpus of 1.25 crores with me when I retire, so that year on year I get this 5 lakhs coming back to me so that I can live my life peacefully. It's a rule of thumb, doesn't take into account inflation, so to that extent you need to be thinking, but broadly in a second you can arrive at what kind of a retirement corpus you would need to enjoy a safe retirement over a long period of time. The next is 100 minus your age rule. This rule is very, very important in what is called asset allocation. Let us say you knew nothing about equity markets or debt markets or investing, and you just wanted to put some money away in equity and debt in some proportion without any idea. The way to do that is use this 100 minus age. Let us say you are a 60-year-old man. 100 minus 60, the amount has to be in equity. So which means 100 minus 60 is 40%. So 40% of your money should go into equity assets 60% must go into debt, which is safer assets. And let's say for some reason you're a 30-year-old person. Then 100 minus 30, 70% of your money must go into equity or riskier investments because you have a longer time to retire. And therefore 30% must go into debt. So very rule of thumb does not necessarily mean for everybody it will apply, but it's a very, very broad benchmark that allows one to kind of understand and make quick decisions and move ahead on that. The next rule is called 10-5-3 rule. Now this rule is very important when you're trying to compute rates of return on your portfolio. What this rule says is that when you are looking at expecting returns on investments, you should consider from a safety perspective 10% return on equity and mutual funds, 5% on debt and bonds, and 3% on your savings bank account. Now, using these as parameters, if you create a portfolio or if you create a long-term plan for your retirement, you're likely to be safer than sorry. So the 10-5-3 is essentially a kind of a benchmark that people would like you to follow in terms of what you need to set as expectations when you're planning your retirement. So these are the 5 we've started out with. Before we go further, a quick kind of a repeat so that we remember. Rule of 72, rule of 70, 4% freedom, and then we spoke about 100 minus your age as an asset allocation rule of thumb, and last is the 10-5-3 rule, which is the 5th one. Next up is the 6th to the 10th. The 6th rule is called the 50-30-20 of allocating income to expenditure. Now this rule talks about how much of your income should you spend for your necessities, how much should you spend for your wants, and how much should you save. Now 50% of your income must go towards your necessities. 30% must go towards your luxuries, your wants, your extras, and at least 20% must go towards savings for a future date. This is a very, very broad rule of thumb. As your income goes up, your ability to save will be much higher, but like I said, these are all rules of thumbs. So at least 50% towards necessities, 30% towards wants, and 20% towards saving. That's that 50-30-20 rule. Next up is what is called the 3x emergency funding rule. The idea is at any point in time, you must have at least 3 times of your monthly expenditure stashed away somewhere as an emergency fund that is easily accessible should you need it. Now this can be held as a savings account, as a fixed deposit in a bank, but nothing more. It should not go into equity market, it should not go into places where you cannot take it back. Now this is so because it has to provide you for any medical emergencies for which you may need money, or if you lose job for a couple of months before you get your job back, if you need to kind of live life normally, this is it. The rule of this emergency fund is 3x. Sometimes people can also look at it as a 6x fund. As long as you're anywhere between 3x and 6x, you will be reasonably comfortable. The 8th rule is what is called the 40% EMI. The rationale is that any scheme, any loan that you take, the EMI of all your loans put together cannot cross more than 40% of your monthly income. In fact, most finance company and housing loan companies will be very keen to look at this rule before they give you the loan. So before you even apply for it, just look at whether you fulfill the criteria, because this is a very important rule to ensure that you have enough liquidity available to pay your EMIs on time. It's called the 40% EMI rule. The next rule is called the life insurance rule or the 20x rule. This is nothing but the life insurance that one needs for life is a simple 20x of the annual income that that person makes. If you don't want to go into detailed calculations, a simple way is, if I am enjoying an annual salary of say 5 lakhs every year, then my simple life insurance cover must be 20 into 5 lakhs. 1 crore should be my life insurance cover. It's a very, very simple rule of thumb. And the last rule of thumb is called 20-4-10. And this is a beautiful rule for any person looking at taking a car loan. What this rule says is that in any transaction where I am trying to buy a car on EMI basis, 20% of the car amount I must be able to put it as a down payment. So 20% towards down payment. The loan tenure must not be more than 4 years. Cumulatively, it must be either 4 or less than 4. 4 is the maximum that I should have. And the 10 stands for the EMI of the loan must be either 10% or less than 10% of my monthly income. So 20-4-10 is the rule by which one can have a very comfortable car loan and finish it in a beautiful way. So remember these 10 hacks or 10 rule of thumbs in the financial world, and I'm sure you will have a greater and a much better, peaceful personal financial life.